Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Man, I really appreciate all the comments we've received recently. Mainly it's been on Instagram, so thanks for following me. If you don't follow me there, it's Jim Riley, Montana. I've got a mixture of what I'm doing up here, some of the businesses I'm in, the coaching, Arte Syndicate, Lion's Den, and of course, as many podcast guests that I can promote through there, I do. So thank you for all your Q&A. Today, I've got a wonderful guest on the line. Happy to have Scott on the line from Orlando, Florida. What's going on down there?
Hey, how you doing, Jim?
I'm guessing your weather's a little bit different than mine. It's snowing right now. What do you got?
72 degrees.
Yeah.
And 72 degrees and snacky.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. I like to do that once in a while.
Yeah.
But you know what? I signed up for the snow. The skiing's great this time of year, and it keeps the weak away, is what I like to say.
Agreed.
So you're down in Orlando. I know what company you're with now, but let's save that for later. Tell me about your background and how life started for you. Were you an entrepreneur as a kid? Were your parents influential to get your start in life, or did you go to college and learn it all there?
So my dad, I was actually named after a guy named Scott Carpenter, who was the second American in space. My dad was an engineer for the space program, Mercury, Redstone specifically, before it was Mercury.
Wow.
So he got out, did his deal, and then immediately after his kind of stint, he started a company, then another company, and then another company, software, commodities, it just kind of all over the place. My mom, they moved here a gazillion years ago in Orlando. I'm actually from Houston, Texas. I moved here, and then I started my time at NASA as a software nerd, for lack of a better term, for them. And my mom had a surf shop, for 25 years in New Smyrna Beach. So it's definitely, that's what we do. We've been starting businesses and running them for, generations.
NASA and surf shop. I never put the two together before.
Yeah.
I guess when you're working at that level of intensity to get that out of your system, just go hit the water and enjoy some surf.
I can definitely attest that I've worked with double and triple PhDs that would ride their bike an hour to get to Kennedy Space Center, and then their board would already be waiting for them, and they'd work for 5-6 hours and then go surfing right there on the coast, and vice versa. So yeah, that's absolutely a thing.
Let me ask you something, just thinking about this. What does it feel like to fill out an application to go work for NASA?
I happen to know a pretty particular technology. My specialty is cryptography. So there's only a handful of that kind of set to begin with. And then you hunker it down to certain kind of languages, software languages. So when you're kind of filling things out there, they're doing the TS, the background Men in Black style kind of background check on you. It's a little much. I got there right after 9/11. So at the gate, there's a guy with a H&K MP5 under his arm, and then in the distance you could see sniper towers that they erected 2 days after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little disconcerting. You're also, what a dream though. I mean, I've been making rockets my entire life, because of my dad's involvement in NASA.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, everything was NASA. So when I got there, they didn't have a computer ready for me for 30 days. I had an all access badge on Kennedy Space Center
property
with nothing to do for 30 days.
Wow.
mostly access.
Yeah.
So, I visited, the launch pad this, launch pad that, Mercury's, Apollo's, and there's all kinds of this heaping wreckage of the Apollo launch platform. It's still just kind of rusting away, out in a forest somewhere. And there's no natural predators because it's, a couple thousand acre nature reserve, alligators everywhere, and panthers and pumas. It's always a fantastic experience.
Wow. You're living every science geek's dream life going through that center.
I would agree. It was, I mean, so they have a Burger King on the Air Force side, it's obviously behind, you're still on property.
Yeah.
When you're in line and there's like, story must go, there's literally people who are astronauts. You're surrounded by like badasses that are like, kind of making it happen at the time for the shuttle program. And it was really something else. I never got to meet Scott Carpenter. We kept passing each other time wise, and then he died about a year after my stint was done there. So I never actually got to meet the guy I was named after, but it was still a great experience.
How do you leave there and go do something else and not feel less than?
Well, I hoard myself out for a lot more money. I prostituted myself out to Disney for an additional couple of years, and then I just kept kind of bouncing in between Fortune 50s and 500s here in Orlando. No, it definitely feels lesser. You're feeding the mouse as opposed to which, by the way, is an amazing organization. No, don't get me wrong, but it's NASA. It's a gazillion years of history, and all kinds of amazing things have happened on that property.
Yeah. What do you think about the space program right now and what's happening in the private sector?
The privatization of everything, obviously, when you think about NASA, just as if it wasn't just a bunch of contractors, it is, right? 40 to 60,000 contractors. The average age when we put men in space was 25. Can you imagine trusting a 25-year-old engineer to put someone in space nowadays? It's a different world right now.
Yeah.
And then after that, everybody got older, and now it feels like SpaceX and the Orions and all the Lockheeds of the world, they went back to this new space. New space isn't that, well, we test things for 5 years. New space is agile. Old space is waterfall. So things are moving at a way that I don't think ever would have happened unless it would have been put in private hands. But that's just, don't get me wrong, my brothers and sisters at the at KSC or whatever, they're amazing people, but I don't know if we would ever have moved this quick if it wasn't for privatization.
Well, leave it to the private sector and entrepreneurs to get some stuff done in a hurry, right?
Yeah, but it's like, when Russia first put Sputnik up, you're like, oh yeah, they got it. But how many cosmonauts died that we never heard about, right? It's like 7, 8, 12, I don't know, more, not zero, right?
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't publicize that. Safety first. And that was the reason we were kind of late to the, because we didn't want to kill our astronauts, excuse us for being awful people, right? I think SpaceX was able to leverage all those things, all that technology, and then go completely off the rails and go pay the best engineers in the entire planet tons of money. It all came down to be able to afford the best of the best of the best. Whereas I don't know if the best is going into the public sector anymore.
Yeah, interesting. I have a background way back when with In-N-Out Burger. Great company. The leadership there was very insightful on how they ran their company. But one of the things that we talked about in the 80s and early 90s in our training program was emulating what they did over at Disney. And I can't help but look at the parallels of you going from a top-notch space program and then going to work for Disney. Was it because of the level that you operated at NASA that they had an interest in having you, or where was the fit there?
The fit was that I'm a fantastic, shameless self-promoter. Actually, I'm a shameful self-promoter. I still feel shame when I do it, but it doesn't keep me from doing it. What I did was, they were paying pretty good. I was a subcontractor at KSC. And then I knew that there was probably another 40 or 50 bucks an hour at Disney. I was just trying to kind of worm my way in. So I FedExed at the time the IT director at Disney my resume to his house.
Good. Hey, creative. Good job.
And then I FedExed it to a bunch of directors, and I literally kind of wormed my way in where maybe I didn't have a way in before. And it was really just came down to, the problem with NASA at the time was they were working on probably 7 or 8 year older versions of languages that I wanted to be in. And to go bleeding edge, you had to go to Disney or go to a Fortune 50 who could take a shot on the newest frameworks or the newest whatever. So, and that was the primary reason. The secondary was there was just money everywhere at the time. Everywhere you looked, you were stepping in money. yeah, $100 an hour rate, 150 for overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And they were working you 60 hours a week. It was just, there's a fortune to be made there.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny. You used the word worm your way in, but everybody thinks, well, that sounds negative. Actually, it's pretty smart. And I think people could learn from worming their way in or being aggressive enough to go after what they want, even if that means sending your resume to somebody's private house. If it's the only way to get in, why not? Got you there.
What are they going to do? Say no? That's fine too. Am
But
I ever going to meet them face to face? Probably not. Ultimately, it's ultimately you're having to kind of climb yourself out of this primal kind of ooze that we're stuck in. This preconception that we get what we get, and we're lucky to get it, and that's just bullshit.
yeah,
You have to you go pry it open, and you go, don't be honest, right? But don't be afraid.
yeah, yeah.
Always be honest. Always be above board, but don't be afraid. What are they going to say? No. Okay, cool.
Well, yeah,
They could say yes.
They could say yes. And there's a chapter in my book that just came out, and I talk about not being afraid to go to the top. Not Orlando, but Florida story. I met with Greg Norman, and we were doing an event up in Rhode Island, and I had a display there, a nice display. And he says, "Man, this is beautiful. I never met him before." He says, "This is beautiful. How come I don't have this at my golf tournament?" I said, "Well, I've talked to your tournament director. I didn't think it was a good fit because of timing and your schedule and everything." He goes, "Well, we need to have this there. Can we meet tomorrow? And, I heard you're going to Chicago. Why don't you fly with me down to Chicago on my jet?" I said, "No problem. Happy to do it." Right? Get a free ride on a new G5 with Rod. The thing is, dealing with the top. Greg and I struck a deal on that plane that, as far as I know, has been in place the last 15 years. Right? And sometimes it means having the guts to drop that resume at somebody's house and make a difference. In our case, it was just making a deal amongst two leaders that can make a decision. Don't be afraid.
What's interesting though is I figured out that I don't know it occurred to me that I figured out once I FedExed it there, I had a signature on there, so I knew they opened it, right?
Yeah.
Then it occurred to me, why don't I just do this for every contract? And then I just started sending this out to Fortune 50s in Orlando, and then I opened my company Bright Ray Consulting about 10 years ago. At one point in time, I had 30 employees, a couple $100,000 a month payroll. And I grew that basically because I was able to, that method. And then like 8 years ago, I started sending these. For those who don't have video, it's an actual video screen sewn into a card.
Love it.
Now I would actually send this directly and pitch the CEO or pitch the IT director or whatever these services, and kind of pry open the door that way. Yeah. And then now that we're in the publishing industry, this is I just send the book, copy the book, and that video, and and your close rates go straight up.
Yeah, I will tell you, when I first started this podcast, I don't know how or why, but I was getting a lot of requests early on. I think because we were pushing it from a marketing standpoint. I had somebody send me a personalized video via YouTube. It's not that hard to do when you think about it.
Yep.
It's a personal video to me from him, why he wanted to be on my show. I called him the second I was done watching that video, because how else would I have known his story or his personality? And he really excited me to have him on the show. And it doesn't take a lot of creativity to get that extra angle, but it does take the work or the action of doing it. I love what you talked about with your card that you sent out.
Yeah, it's the thing HubSpot. I don't know if you use HubSpot. I love HubSpot. I'm not here. I don't own any stock in HubSpot, but I'm just telling you how awesome it is. HubSpot allows you to do personalized videos for every email. So literally, I could do a campaign to every podcaster in North America with hey Chris, hey Jim, hey Rob, hey Bill, hey whatever, and film those. It's all hosted. It's all in the actual email itself. You click on it, it looks at the video, but it's not playing in the actual email. It opens up and boom, there you are. But there's some great ways to automate that, semi-automate that. They don't give it away though. It's a gazillion dollars. But if you want to go down that road, it's definitely doable.
Yeah, no, I just added it to my email blast a couple months ago because the value, they get your newsletter, which is great, but if they don't want to read it, they can just click on the video and hear what you're up to, and maybe I refer back to the email so that they go back to read it at a different date, but they've got a better idea of the content. I think people are so much more into listening right now than they are actually reading sometimes. You're in the book business, and I want to talk about Bright Tray and what you guys do over there.
Bright Ray.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's R-A-Y. It's okay. Everybody does that. It's where he's like capitalize the R on the word. So I own the trademark, right?
Yeah.
For Bright Ray. So if anybody used it, I just immediately go, file a cease and desist, but I actually own the trademark for Bright Ray. So all my companies, Bright Ray this, Bright Ray that, it's always Bright Ray.
Yeah, good.
It's already on the IP.
Well, tell us about your companies and what y'all do over there.
So Bright Ray Publishing, what we do is we write books